I think he's made a business decision to actually stick around. Because
Mm.
him being in Formula One is more lucrative than him leaving the sport right now. That's just
Yeah,
it.
that is true. But you can't win
That's
with that
just it.
attitude, I don't think.
And he's not winning.
Yeah,
He's
no,
not.
that's my point.
He's not. And
He's not going to, I don't think, either, with that
yeah.
attitude.
Anyways,
Yeah.
moving on from that. Moving on from that.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about the more upbeat things. Lewis Hamilton's weekend.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I mean, there was something
His end
upbeat.
of his over
There was
the
something
radio.
upbeat, by the way.
Yeah.
The Senna thing.
That was
He drove
class.
the Senna.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
in the
I mean,
wet.
I mean, he grew up, and I think I felt for him. As a kid, if there's someone you idolize, I mean, for me, when I grew up, I idolized someone like a Sachin Tendulkar because almost everyone in India did. But
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you do
and no one outside
something,
India even knows who that is, so it's fine. Like,
yeah, it's all right. Fine by me. The thing is, for him to basically drive the same car that his idol did, yeah, that's like a one for the bucket list. I mean, I was quite happy for him.
yeah.
Other than that, oh god,
Yeah, it did not go well. There was it was great watching him go around in that. The over the line radio, there's been some rumors that he's not going to be in the car for the rest of the season now, which I can't see happening. I have heard one or two things, but I can't see it happening.
what have you heard? I mean, if you can tell.
I've heard from someone that there was a conversation that basically Hamilton is kind of like past the point of stress and he was looking forward to Brazil and so on, and that was kind of, for him, it was like he wanted to finish off in Brazil, and that there has been a conversation that he wouldn't be against basically taking the last 3 races off, like, because they can, under the contract, if both agreed, they could do it, and that it would give Kimi time to basically bed in before the new season and give Lewis time to switch off before going to Ferrari. And essentially, I think there was some conversation I heard that Mercedes basically could have basically lapsed it completely to say he could go and basically start like before December or before January with Ferrari, not drive, but kind of get embedded with the team and so on. I can't see, like,
I doubt it.
I very much can't see it happening. I
don't
heard
see it happening.
basically the conversation I had is it's unlikely to happen, but earlier in the season when he was struggling, they did have a conversation about it, and that was as much as it could be. How much of that's true, I don't know, but these are people that don't generally bullshit me. Like, so I imagine it was more of he was really down.
Weird.
Yeah, he said if this was the last time I get to perform,
What does it mean?
I think Sai pointed it out. Sai corrected it, or not corrected, but I posted it in the chat we have with Sai, and Sai made a good point. It could be that this was the last race where Mercedes thought they'd have a car that could perform, and that there'll be no more upgrades. And basically, he's thinking but it's an odd phrase,
I think Mercedes would do well in Qatar compared to here.
I thought so too, yeah. So it's just a strange sentence, but that's what Sai's reasoning was, which is fair. Like, maybe that is accurate, but yeah, it was a strange sentence. And then as soon as he said that, I did think someone did tell me earlier in the year, and I was like, bullshit. I can't remember when it was, but it was. I can't remember which race it was after, but I remember talking to a guy from Mercedes, and he said, "I've heard that Toto and Lewis basically have a conversation, and it's along the lines of if at any point like later in the season you want to." And apparently there was kind of a laughy kind of after Brazil, like that kind of thing. And it made sense to me at the time because I was like, Brazil is obviously a race he's not going to want to miss, and like, if they had, but I was like, there's no way that's serious. That's probably just Toto and him going, look, I know this isn't going well, let's finish on a high, whatever happens. So, I'm sure it means nothing. But it was interesting when I heard that I went, oh, the fuck? Like, what's that about,
Yeah, but afterwards, his, whatever media scrum he had, he was a bit like, yeah, I'm waiting for Christmas and stuff like that. So
yeah, so I can't see it. Happening.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. But what do you make of his entire weekend?
Oh, Jesus, it was just a shit show.
By the way, just to clarify, we don't intend to shit on Lewis, but That's it. Go for it.
We don't intend to shit on Lewis. Now for 5 minutes of shitting on Lewis.
Yeah.
No, like it just wasn't a very good weekend. Like, and nothing went his way. And performance wise, he just wasn't there. And at the end of the day, like there's a lot of people, especially Hamilton fans, obviously, who for some reason put themselves in a box of calling George a shit driver when they shouldn't have, and now can't back out of that, so they have to blame the team and the car parts and sabotage, when realistically the option is Russell's actually just a very good driver and he's more comfortable with this car than Lewis is, and that's basically the end of it.
I think that's not even the case.
I also think he's switched off completely as well. I think he gave up after. I think Silverstone was like a high, right? And then Spa, obviously, that was a different win, because of the way it went.
Yeah.
But I think after Silverstone, I think he was on a little bit of a high for a while. And then I think what happened is, as soon as the performance dropped off again, I think for him, it's kind of, he's done everything now. So it's like kind of just, it's over, I'm finished here. And when Lewis switches off, he switches off. Like, I've seen this a few times in the past. When he switches off, he's just not there anymore. And I think we're seeing that now.
I think it's even worse, honestly. I think there's an element of not willing to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis is a driver. Again, this has often been said and talked about by a lot of his past engineers at McLaren, at Mercedes, where they've said that Lewis did not spend as much time in the engineering bit as probably his teammates did.
Yeah.
I think
he admitted
as age catches up, you see that playing a role. Because, look, he's a talent. He's probably going to go down in F1 history as one of the greatest talents. Put him in any car as a 24, 25-year-old and he's going to basically extract whatever's there. The thing is, when you're 40, it does not come as easily, and you have to work your ass off. You have to really, really push.
Alonso literally ended relationships to like he is full on like racing is my only focus.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is Hamilton, as you said, like he needs to be just all in, and Hamilton has the other things he wants to do.
And he's not, and I'll be honest, I don't think he's ever faced this situation where, again, just a reminder, this is a car that is built on his input.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, the Mercedes that is there right now...
He designed it, I think, didn't he? According to his fans at the start of the season.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, this car has potential. It is fast. If things worked, this car would have won the race on Sunday. George was winning the race.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And if that is happening, and you're struggling to score 1 point, trying to overtake an Alpha Tauri, then I'm sorry, it cannot always be a case that you're on a compromise setup, you're on experimental stuff, whatever. You're just not putting the hard yards.
I mean, look.
And I think there was this, by the way, there was this video they shared of Lewis going through the puddles and struggling with the car.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, you look at George's onboards, they are literally the same. There's no difference. He's also struggling through that car, but he's extracting the lap time out of it. And I think the problem here is, he has an elite driver in the same car with him, and he's just getting exposed big time right now. That's what is there.
Yeah. I think this is the difference, though, isn't it? Like, this is the problem, that the age and kind of checking out will make a difference as well. Because when Russell has struggled, he knows he's long term there, so he will continue getting the head down and working on it, and going through everything. And I think Lewis is kind of like, well, in fairness as well to Lewis, one thing, he probably can't do a lot of that now at the minute either, because he's decided to leave. So there's certain technical briefings and so on he's just not allowed into anymore, which is just the norm for anyone who calls sabotage. That's just, it's obvious that's what happens. You don't want your driver taking info but to be honest, as much as I do think that could be a factor in it, the form has been here kind of all season, and like there's been a couple of races where he's been really good, but in those races where he's been like, where he's won even, Russell has been brilliant as well. So it's not like to put it this way, like you said, if it was like swinging back and forth all season, it'd be one thing, but it's constantly in Lewis's direction. And the Hamilton fans put that as, oh, it's they're always, picking George. But it's like, no, like the team has nothing to gain from doing that.
Yeah.
So it for me, it's Hamilton's form seems to have dropped off this year at points. He's been really good at certain points, but it seems like once things go wrong, he has no interest in kind of fixing it. And that for me is a worry, because in the past when things went wrong, he would very much put his head down and get back in the game for the next race or whatever. I don't know, like, if he has this attitude right now, is it just a switch? Like he goes to Ferrari and he puts his head down and like, I don't know.
It doesn't work like that, right?
No. As we said earlier about Norris, right? Norris should build the momentum now so that it's ready for next season.
Yeah.
Like, as Rosberg did against him.
Yeah.
So.
It's just I think we are at a stage where we're just seeing what happens when an elite driver is teamed up with Lewis and the elite driver is consistent as well. We saw shades of it when Button was doing it to Lewis regularly. He used to do that. And I think this season is just one-way street. You can look at the point standings and make your conclusions whichever way you want. Even there, I think Russell has jumped him now. But I
think so, right?
Yeah, he did. And that's why actually Lewis said, I don't care if George beats me in the standings. But the thing is, you don't care. If you stop caring about such a thing... I've never seen Lewis actually admit that he does not care that his teammate beats him. That's... I think he's tainting his legacy. Let's just put it this way.
Yeah.
If Lewis had retired... I'll tell you something. 2020 Turkish Grand Prix, that's Lewis Hamilton's peak. Since then, everything has gone downhill. And if Lewis retired in 2020, if after that very race or saw out the season, what we would have is Lewis Hamilton having a very concrete case of being the GOAT.
Yeah.
But what we've seen afterwards is, as soon as the car is not perfect, not dominant, he was not the best driver in 2021. Quite clearly. 2022, 23, 24, he's seen himself, I'd say, outperformed by George Russell. And how does one call him the greatest of all time if
but 2023
every time the car gets worse, you're just losing?
But this is the thing, like 2023, the car, like there was a big swing after Monaco where Russell went from being, I thought, comprehensively a better driver up until kind of Monaco. And then they changed the package and Russell really couldn't get to grips with it, right? But Russell kept his head down, and by the end of the season, you could see Russell was kind of, okay, I'm getting on top of this now. And this season, now that he's in the points lead, sorry Hamilton fans, but there is literally no way to justify Russell not being better than Hamilton this year. You had the points, which I disagreed with. I was like, right, there's mitigating circumstances on the points there.
It's look at every head-to-head.
It's 8 to 13, so 13 to 8, for Russell in the races. Right, 4 to 1 in sprints. It is 16 to 5 in qualifying, 4 to 1 in sprints for qualifying. So that is a comprehensively, like, the thing is, it's like, if we look at other drivers down the grid where it's that kind of swing, you've got 18 to 3 for Lando and Piastri in qualifying. So that's probably one of the closest. Carlos Sainz race to head to head is 6 to 13. So, I mean, put it this way, Charles Leclerc is basically along the same lines as Russell in terms of beating Sainz.
Yeah.
So, like...
And we don't really rate Carlos as one of the lead drivers. So
no. It's 14 to 7 Lando to Piastri in races. So, like, you've got the same people who will say that Hamilton is better than George telling you that Piastri is better than Norris.
Lando.
And in neither case does it really stack up.
Neither of them went to school or studied maths.
Yeah, or studied maths, yeah. So look, I don't know. I'm concerned because I said it, like, I know that for Lewis it's a big paycheck and living out a bit of a dream going to Ferrari and all of these things, but I think it's going to tarnish the legacy more. Because
he is gone. Just
if he can't beat George as his own team he's not going to beat Leclerc at his team, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think, as I said earlier, if he beats Leclerc, I'm going to be incredibly impressed because I think he's beating the full package of Leclerc now. This is no longer just the qualifying specialist, if you want. This is a guy who kind of has everything now.
I'm still skeptic that he might be able to do, and one of the biggest reasons is because I think Ferrari's not the full package, and Ferrari might screw up with Leclerc, just like McLaren is doing it with Lando. That's where I worry, because I think if that happens and Leclerc's shoulders fall, so you see a situation where Lewis takes over, because again Lewis is Lewis. It's just, I mean, it's a very simple thing, man. We talk about the greatest of all times.
I don't think Leclerc's shoulders can fall any further. I think the damage has been done. So
that's also there. That's also true. Do you think Mercedes should rest Lewis for the last 3 races?
Honestly,
I'll share the 2 aspects. One of them is the business aspect, where the answer is no. It doesn't make any fucking sense you do that. Sporting aspect, I think he should. I think Toto should give Kimi a try.
I think it makes sense for them to do it. Like, I think there's a chance it could happen for the last race. I don't think Lewis wants to miss Vegas, for example, regardless of how bad it goes. You know, it's a big event. Lewis is very much thinks of himself as like this superstar in America, so he wants to build that, you know.
What do you mean he thinks of himself as a superstar?
I'm not getting into this conversation. He is not bigger than F1. No one is. Yeah, so like, I think people know Daniel Ricciardo more. And but anyway, I just said that because I know how many people that's gonna piss off. He is like, he's a big star in the US now because the US loves winners. But you know, Max Verstappen is kind of the guy people root for in the US at the minute because they like winners. You know, that's just who the US is.
Max will, I think, appear on a pod in Flagrant. What I've heard.
With Andrew Schultz. Yeah. I love that podcast.
Most probably.
And Singh.
It's fun.
What's his name?
It's fun.
He's an Indian guy in there as well.
Akash,
yeah. I don't pretend to learn his first name. I don't treat Indians as real people. So
have you remembered your my name? Look, every 7th person you meet is an Indian.
I know, yeah, I know. I'm joking. But we are looking for a co-host replacement. So
Jason.
Yeah. Though, like, he clearly stuck around because, and he said this in a few occasions, he wants to go for the 8th. But I think at some point, I think Ferrari is the roll of the dice, and if Ferrari doesn't go well next year, I don't think it's going to go well in 2026 either for him.
I don't think so too.
So
again, the direct comparison, I think Alonso sticking for as long as he has, it has enhanced his legacy because, boy, is he doing some brilliant stuff in that car that does not deserve to be anywhere near where it is right now. Lewis is not doing that. Lewis is getting showed up with a young, fast driver alongside him. That's maybe where Alonso has probably got the advantage.
No, you know what I think the big difference is between Alonso and Hamilton there, though? Hamilton came into the sport, right? And I remember him coming into the sport, and it was like first black driver. You know, this was and he's made a big deal of this as well. And to be fair, it was a big deal. Like, I'm not diminishing that.
Yeah.
Because it was like very much a white boy sport for a long time. But like, you know, still is. Yeah. So like, I'm not diminishing that. And it's a big deal. But I think he's kind of also like most drivers, most sports people have a chip on their shoulders. But I think like a lot of these drivers, they get over that. And like Max, for example, I think had that chip on his shoulder, his dad's pressure and so on. Max won the world championship and then just wanted to keep winning because he likes winning. So that kind of chip off his shoulder is gone. You know, it's like, right, now I just want to win. Alonso's the same. No matter what people think about Alonso just thinks Alonso is the best. So Alonso will keep racing regardless of what you think. He doesn't give a shit about his legacy. He's just like, I'm the best, I'll keep racing. Whereas when Lewis answers, he's like, I want to go for that 8th because I need to be the best. You know, like I need to be. And it constantly feels like he's trying to prove that to himself, but also because he puts pressure on it, it does tarnish his legacy when he's not winning because he's creating that expectation for his legacy. Whereas Alonso is just like, if I have the best car, I'll win. I don't give a fuck. Like, you know, that. So you can't hurt Alonso's legacy because he doesn't give a shit about it. You know, like, so If
I
Alonso
think
cared about his
I have a
legacy, he
slightly
wouldn't have come
different
back.
view. I have a slightly different view when it comes to Lewis. I think he's made a business decision to actually stick around because
Mm.
him being in Formula One is more lucrative than him leaving the sport right now. That's
Yeah,
just it.
that is true, but you can't win
That's
with
just
that
it.
attitude, I don't think.
And he's not winning.
Yeah, no,
He's not.
that's my point.
He's not. And
He's not going to, I don't think, either, with that
yeah,
attitude.
again, this is going to piss off a lot of people, but frankly, going to again, it makes a lot of sense. There's drive, there's everything, but I don't think. I mean, I've seen Alonso in Alpine, a team where the car is just it broke for no reason in far too many races. And even then you saw him in the last race, he was still hustling that car, still going wheel to wheel with Ocon, both of them just hating each other, but still. And he did that even though he knew he was going to Aston Martin next season.
Yeah. This
That's
is my
the
point.
attitude, right?
Alonso is, this is going to piss people off, but Alonso is closer to Verstappen in that respect. That Alonso just wants to drive and win. He doesn't care about how many titles he gets. He doesn't care about X, Y, and Z. I'm sure he does a little
wants to
bit,
be
but you know,
he wants to be recognized as the best. And
but yeah, sure.
I think still one thing that stands out for me for Alonso, and I think this is what typifies him above everything else. There was this whole conversation about Kyle Larson versus Max Verstappen and Alonso, and the question was pitched to Alonso that Kyle Larson is saying that he's faster than Max Verstappen. Alonso's reply was, "I'm faster."
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
But
that should tell you everything about him.
he also said, what was it? Like he has a lot of respect for Max as well, though.
Yeah, of
Even in
course.
that, what was it at the end of the podcast? They said a person you'd like to have a drink most with, or something like that, and he said Max Verstappen.
On
know,
on a podcast, it was
That's what it
Max.
was. Who would you invite on your podcast? Max Verstappen.
Yeah, it was Max.
So
But
like,
yeah, it's-
which
yeah.
I don't know. Like, look, Alonso has the benefit of he's been written. I think Alonso was written off by most people pretty like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So Alonso only has upside now. You know, like if you don't think Alonso is one of the greats, you're never going to think he's one of the greats. So like, Alonso doesn't really have anything to lose by keeping going. Whereas I think Lewis does, because like if Alonso, right, simple way to put this out, because I don't want to go on about this forever, but Alonso is not using F1 to build anything outside of F1, basically. All of Alonso's like interests and focuses and investments are in racing. He's even managing young drivers. He has his karting thing now in his championship. I think he's starting, maybe I'm wrong there, but
He
he's
manages
invested in.
Colapint. Next year, he will have two drivers. He would be managing two drivers on the grid.
Yes,
Bortoletto
but he's also
and
got his
Colapinto.
own go-kart business as well, right? And his own
FA
go-kart
14
track.
something.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah. So like all of his interests are in racing. So Alonso basically just wants to focus on racing, and that's the thing for him. Whereas, like you said, it's Lewis has his interests outside of Formula One. He wants to build a presence outside of Formula One, and probably realizes that if he doesn't stay in Formula One, then a lot of that sway goes away. Like no one cares about bees since Vettel, left. Basically,
That's the first thought I had when you
personally am
mentioned
eating
it.
more honey and killing more bees ever since he left, just to make sure he comes back. But yeah, so I don't know where this rant was going, but basically just to say, I think Lewis needs to be careful, because I think if the longer he sticks around, the more he tarnishes that legacy. Whereas I think, like you said, Alonso kind of, if Alonso's legacy was going to be tarnished, it's been done. Like it's not,
I mean,
you can't
Alonso's
really tarnish
legacy
it anymore.
Yeah, Alonso only. By the way, I mean, let's switch gears towards Alonso as well. Aston Martin. Boy, did I feel he was in tears after the race in front of the
Yeah.
media, and you could see that he was in pain. That car, what a piece of junk. Honestly,
Part of his legend as well. Did you see the thing where he's like, "I want to retire, but we should get to the end"? He
Yeah,
basically
man.
said, "Like,
For
the
the mechanics.
mechanics rebuilt these cars. I'm not retiring."
Yeah.
Like that's
at 43.
incredible. You know, that's incredible.
I just hope
Lewis
he
has a
gets the
slightly
car.
bad tire, and he tells him we should retire the car. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Yeah, I thought he would retire. I expected Lewis to retire during the Brazilian Grand Prix. The amount of times he complained about the ride the car and whatever. By the way, if you notice, this time around they've not come out with any explanation or anything. Mercedes,
No,
nothing. That's
because
just
it's
the way I
you
think
can't
about it.
explain it. Like Russell was
Yeah.
leading the race.
Yeah.
They were on
How-
they're in the same cars. You know, like if the setup goes wrong, then tough shit. That's Lewis. You need to get on top of your setup. Like you can't.
And look,
if
if-
the
if
other
the
driver
setup's
can do
gone
it, then
wrong,
tough.
Yeah, and if the setup's gone wrong, just replicate the same setup here and start from the pit lane, and and enforce such a thing. It's like the people act as if Lewis is a little child and anyone can bully him around. That's just not how it's there, and you cannot tell me otherwise. I've seen the 2015 season, 16 season, where everyone basically begged him to speed up, and he didn't in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
telling me this guy gets bullied around? Shut
Yeah.
the fuck up.
No,
You don't
it's
know
just-
the sport.
I think next year is going to tell us whether one of two things has happened this season. I think either he has just completely switched off and given up, like basically he had a couple of bad races and just said, right, look, I've already won Silverstone, I'm out. Like, you know,
Yeah.
basically mentally has switched off. We'll know if that's just the case if in Ferrari he comes in and he's absolutely on it, like with Leclerc. Maybe not first race, I think that would be too much to ask, but let's say 5 or 6 races in, if he's all
Yeah.
of a sudden starting to get on the back of Leclerc, first race, whatever, he's not going to be there. Like, you know, he's got some learning to do. But let's say we get through the halfway point and he is properly challenging Leclerc, then it's like, okay, it's not so much Mercedes' fault, it's just he switched off. He switched off, but talent-wise, he's back. But if we get to the end of next season and Leclerc has comprehensively beaten him again, like this, you know, for 2020, the entire season, for me, it's like, right, well, like, I can forgive maybe half a season for adjusting.
Yeah.
But a full season, if you're still in the back half of the season, nowhere near him,
Yeah.
the form has dropped. And if anyone starts telling me, oh, you know, it's Ferrari favouring, no, I'm sorry, Ferrari didn't pay $100 million a year to favour one driver. Like, cop the
Yeah,
fuck
to
off.
hire a second
You know.
driver.
Yes,
Basically.
no.
And
They
it's
already
just-
had a second driver that is very capable, you know,
Yeah.
who won a race in Mexico and then was forgotten
just-
about in the next race. But yeah,